Hey guys, as you know, over the last 24 or 48 hours, I've got a massive amount of new followers, subscribers to the channel. This is huge. It means the world to me, guys. The one thing I will say is this video that you're about to watch is about 40 minutes, which is a lot longer than a lot of people stick around for, but I highly, highly recommend you stick around for the whole thing. We make some massive progress in this video that for a lot of people who are trying to do this, it will actually get them to where they can start working on their car and doing things. So stick around, and I hope you enjoy the video. Thanks. Hey guys, Steve here, your electronic mechanic. I am going to take you guys through the next steps on this audio controller. I've been really kind of tearing my hair out over the last couple weeks. Yeah, it's actually been a couple weeks since I talked to you guys about what this chip actually does, what it actually means, and I've run into dead end after dead end. To give you an example of one of the solutions I tried to come up with, I actually tried to figure out if there was a way to remove the chip entirely and see if we could use a resistance ladder, right? And it's all over the place. We would need to be putting traces, we would need to be cutting traces, we would need to be changing resistors, we would need to be completely repurposing the ground plane. Honestly, could it be done? Yeah, this would actually be the solve. The issue that I would say that we would have is that unfortunately we would lose access to our LEDs. I don't believe our LEDs would work anymore, and I think that would just kind of be a big problem for us. So with all that being said, what I've ultimately landed on is going with interpreting and reading the LIN bus signal. So we're going to leave the Melexis chip on here. We're going to have all of this operate as if it was still in the 2016 or later car. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to intercept this LIN bus signal. Instead of it being sent over to the instrument cluster, what we will do is we will build our own module that will be able to read and understand and interpret that. Now, when it comes to doing that, there's a couple pieces of hardware we need. There are a couple pieces of software we need. I will get into explaining them and how to use them in just a second. Hey guys, I wanted to take a quick break to give you guys a warning. If, for whatever reason, any of your power pins comes out of your breadboard, don't mess around with them while the ESP32 is still plugged into your computer, laptop, either. What could happen is you could make the same mistake I did where I unplugged, well, I didn't unplug, the 5-volt power from the ESP32 came out of the breadboard. It just slipped out, and I wasn't paying attention, and I took that 5-volt little jumper cable and I plugged it into the 12-volt directly to my bench power supply. The power shot through, fried the ESP32. It went right into the laptop, fried the laptop USB power rails, and a whole bunch of parts inside of the laptop needed to be replaced. So, this is my warning to you guys. If for whatever reason one of your power pins pops out, stop what you're doing, unplug the ESP32 from the computer, then fix what you need to, make sure everything is fine, then plug your ESP32 back in. Again, don't make the same mistake I did. Otherwise, you're going to be set back a couple weeks. Thanks, and let's get back to the content. So, from a hardware perspective. Now, I am going to be practicing this on my desk. I'm going to flip over to my desk. You can see here we have a couple things going on, and the most important piece is we have our steering wheel, and then we have 3 components here. Now, here is an adjustable buck converter. Now, we don't actually need that for this test, but I'll show you why we need it in a second. This over here is a LIN to UART converter. So if I can bring that up closer, if you guys want to see the part number here, this is something that I simply got on Amazon, TTL to LIN bus converter. The company is called Elitech, I guess Elitech Supply, and then LIN TTL3. Very simple board, not complicated, but it's something we need. There's a couple pins on here. I've already pre-wired them in, but the pins you primarily need are your ground and your VN, going to provide power to the unit, your LIN line, naturally, and then on this side is your RX and TX line. Now, I have a limited understanding of this. I believe RX and TX have to do with data signals coming in versus data signals going out. I don't know which one is RX. I don't know which one is TX. But I do know what pins they go into. I have a simple breadboard here so we can start putting this together. And finally, I have an ESP32 in a package here. Now, why do I have it in a package? Because I want to show you guys I'm doing this with a brand new ESP32. There is no code pre-written on this. So we are going to learn and we are going to put this together. All right, so without further ado, what I want to do first is I first want to get us set up over here and get us in a position where we have everything set up so we can start working on this digitally. All right, so we have our ESP32. We're going to set that aside for now. And first, we're going to get ourselves set up with our power and our LIN bus converter. So I have a 12-volt bench supply on my desk that I typically use. So I am going to plug the positive and negative leads into my breadboard. Then I'm going to take my my power supply and I'm going to plug it in. Before I do anything else, I am going to turn my multimeter on and I'm going to quickly measure my power supply just to make sure it's outputting power that is normal and nothing crazy that shouldn't be output. It's about 12.5, 12.6 volts. That's perfectly fine because the UART, and this is something that's important, I'm going to mention it now, you guys should have heard it already, is the UART takes 12 volts, the ESP32 takes 5 volts. Okay? Do not mix them up, do not confuse them. You'll fry the ESP32 and potentially anything else that is connected to it. But before we even get there, I'm going to take my buck converter. We're going to look at this. We're going to see on the buck converter itself. Now, yours may look like this. There are some smaller ones that have a little bit less componentry to them. I like this because it's got a digital display on it, so I can see what it actually is. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. I'm going to plug it in. Now, I'm going to take my inside. You should see these. They should typically be labeled in, so that's a little hard for you to see, but trust me, that says in and that says out. And we're going to plug that into our breadboard, and I like to put it on the far end. So that turns on, and you can see it's got 5.1 volts. I always keep one of these little guys handy. It's a simple digital volt display. Why? Because if you had a buck converter that you didn't know what the voltage was, you wouldn't even have to use the multimeter. You can plug that in. Now, this is the outbound, right, which is these lines. This is my inbound, which, as I said with the multimeter, is 12.5. If you wanted to double check and change that up, you could pull that out. We can put this on the inside here, and we can put this on the inside here, and we can plug in this one, and we can plug in this one over here. And that should, if I get them plugged in correctly, show us 5.1 volts, right? Which is what we want. Okay, so we have our buck converter in, and let me just double check here. So we plug this in, and yep, see, we got 5.1. Okay, now I'm going to take this out. What popped out here? There we go. So I'm going to take these out for now, 5.1, because I technically don't need the buck converter right now. So I'm going to set that to the side. Now we have our UART converter. So we're going to take this UART converter, and here's what we need to do. We have our V in, which is my yellow for me. I'm going to put that into my 12 volts. Okay, because based on the actual wiring diagram, this needs to be 12 volts. And I have a ground. So I'm going to put it on the far end over here just because it's an easier thing for me. Okay, so now our UART converter, this doesn't have an LED, but trust me, it's powered. Okay, then over here we have our RX and TX. We're simply going to plug these in over here just for now and have these set up so that once we need to start tapping into this information, we can. And I'll remember that my green is my RX. Oh, this popped out. All right, now we have our LIN. Our LIN is going to need to go into our LIN on our actual thing. Now, this is where, guys, I try to be very careful and I try to be very consistent. So you can see this one is green. I'm going to light this. I'm going to set this one green. Now, I've seen this enough times, but if we really needed to, we could go back to our diagram on the screen and show that our LIN bus is pin 2. And for now, we only need three signals. We need our LIN bus, we need our red and blue, our red and brown, which is our 12 volt in, and our ground on the end. Okay, so if we flip back to our desk, we're going to put this in slot number 2. Now, I know, again, because I've done this so many times, but you can look at the colors because I have the colors over there. Red and brown is our 12 volt in. That's pin 1. That's the one all the way to the right here. You see that red and brown, which means this green one next to it is our LIN bus, which is pin 2. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to slide it into pin 2. And I'm going to leave that over there for now. Okay, next up, we need to get a 12 volt source in here and a ground over here. So I'm going to grab I have this separate one over here. I'm going to grab all these, bring them over, and let's start setting this up. So if I can be consistent, my desk is also a mess, as you can see. So I'm kind of looking all over to see if I have blacks I can use for those chocolate on my desk from my kids. Let's see, what do I have? Well, let's do this. Let's take yellow, and we'll use yellow, although I used yellow as power over here, so I'm already breaking my own rules. You know what? Let's just use blue. We got a blue right here, and I have a couple more blue that I can use, so we're going to use blue. So blue, we're going to put it in here. And we're going to take this blue one. Okay, and I am not going to plug this in yet because I want to plug it in last. Okay, I like to plug my ground in last. And then I'm going to take red and we're going to set red up over here. So remember, that needs to be a 12 volt source. So I'm going to go directly in over here. 12 volts. And I'm going to take another red one I have. No, that's not a good red one. Here we go, red with pins on both sides. I recommend, guys, invest in a huge amount of these jumper cables, both with the pins on both sides, and there's ones with a pin on one side and no pin on the other. I think I'm constantly feeling like I'm running out of them. Now, I am going to shut my desk light off because I want to show you guys something. These lights are intended to be lit up when this thing is powered and when the Melexis chip is running. So I'm going to put my 12 volt power source in. We should not have anything. Okay, so right now everything is off. Now I'm going to take my ground and let's keep a close eye on these lights. Okay, the lights here, the lights over here. Okay, let's keep a close eye once I plug this in. And my ground is pin 10. So I'm going to try to do this. Sorry, my elbow hit the microphone a few times. So if it sounded like thunder, that's why. Okay, what do we have? Do we have anything? We got nothing. Which surprises me. Oh, you know what? I am actually looking at the wrong wiring diagram. So give me just a second. I was looking at the wiring diagram of the actual chip, not the wiring diagram in the wheel. So in the wiring diagram, ground is 9, ground is not 10. Yep, so our ground is pin 9. Sorry, I had a visitor. Our ground is pin 9, so I'm going to take this out. Now, when I take it out and I put it in pin 9, we should see these lights light up. Okay, look. Lit, 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 lit. Dead. Okay, you guys saw that, right? We're going to try this again, but I'm going to unplug it here because it's easier to unplug it here. Take my ground out. Plug it in. Did I mess up? Did I unplug the wrong thing? Unless it was just still... Oh, no. Maybe I plugged in the wrong spot. Okay. In any event, you guys definitely saw that. It was lit momentarily, and then it turned off, right? So why is that? The reason for that is because the Melexis chip got power, but it's a smart chip. It's not always running. So it ended up falling asleep. It went back to sleep. This is important. It's very important. Why? It explains why we need this guy. This Melexis chip is not going to wake up until it hears the correct signal to wake it up. So we need to go about actually writing some code so that this ESP32 is going to pretend it is a 2016 plus instrument cluster and tell that Melexis chip in there, hey, what are you doing? Are you up? Are you trying to turn the volume up? Are you trying to turn the volume down? Are we trying to change the favorites? Are we trying to do push to talk? All of that. We need to trick this guy into thinking he's speaking our same language. So I've had this unplugged for about 20 seconds. I think the chip might take a little bit of time for it to like reset once you unplug it. But okay, see, lit, stays lit for about 5 seconds. Boom, dead. So again, I'm just trying to show you, this took me forever to figure out that we need this wake up signal for the LIN bus to operate. Okay, so now that we have this, that's where this RX and TX come in. So we're going to take our ESP32. Now, I know I told you this, guys, before. I'm going to tell it to you again, and I'm probably going to say it again once more. Do not mess around with your power signals on the ESP32 unless you're not plugged into the USB. Okay, you guys already got the warning before, but I'm warning you again. So I'm going to leave that unplugged for now, and I'm going to find two, like I said, the ones with the pin and without the pin. I'm going to find two of them that I want to use. When I was doing this last time, I think I was using... my desk is a total mess. You know what? Let's just grab this one. We'll grab this one, which is gray. And we will grab gray and this looks like a loose one. So let's grab brown. So we got a gray one and a brown one. And I really don't like that this is so short, but we'll deal with it. So on your ESP32 chip, you're going to have two pins on here. Hopefully the one you have is the same one I have. Oh, this is really hard to see. You're not going to be able to see this on the webcam. But over here, there's one pin called RX and there's one pin called TX. Those are the pins you want to tap into. So I am going to tap into the back here. I am going to put, and I'm always going to remember that my brown is TX and my white is RX. Okay, so now those are going to go over here, and my TX is my TX is orange, and my green is RX. Okay? And last but not least, we're going to grab our USB. Now, what this buck converter is for, and I'm actually going to unplug it right now because we don't need it, but what this buck converter will eventually be is to power the ESP32 and prove that we can run this and simulate it without having the buck converter attached. Okay? But in any event, let's plug this in. Okay? And we will get to setting up some very basic code to see if we can read what's going on. And more than just read, let's just see if we can wake this up and keep this thing on so the lights stay on. I think that's a good challenge for us to start with. So let's move on over to that. All right, guys. So we're going to go through actually writing the code here. And typically when we get into this system called Arduino IDE, I'm using that because it's what I'm familiar with the ESP32. Simply put, we need to set up a couple variables at first. We need to get into writing the actual script, and then we need to convince our steering wheel to turn on. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We are going to start at the top with the most basic of basic and say we need to include Arduino.h, which are very basic Arduino functions, okay? We're going to include those. The next thing we need to do is we need to set the pins for data transfer. Now, if you recall correctly, we have our remember, we used RX2 and TX2. Well, on this particular ESP32, that would mean we are defining LIN-TX as pin 17, and we are defining LIN-RX as pin 16. The next thing we need to do is we need to define the baud rate. The baud rate is, think of it as like the speed of which you speak the language of the computer you're working on. And I am going to take a look to see if I have that information handy. I use this system called AllData, which is a subscription. You pay like, I want to say it's like $60 a year for unlimited access to all of the wiring diagrams, not just wiring diagrams, but repair manuals, everything for your car. Guys, I am not sponsored by them. I have no sponsorship with them, but it is one of the really cool things you can do if you get access to this software called, or not software, it's a, like I said, it's a subscription model called AllData. So if we look here, I'm going to go to my 2016 Camaro because that's the system, 2016 or greater, that this comes from. And I am going to look up local interconnect if I can spell it right, network. Okay, and what I want is, I want to see if I can find how does this operate. So I'm going to look for not maybe diagnostic information, description and operation, data link communications. Let's see if that takes us where we need to go. So we're in here, we're looking at this, we want to understand which one of our, here we go, local interconnect network, LIN network, and here we go. Here is the local interconnect network, consists of a single wire called with a transmission rate of 10.417 kilobytes. So that's the information we need. So we're going to drop this out. We'll take that out of what we're looking at, and we will come over here and type in our LIN baud rate of 10.417. Okay, once we have that, the next thing we're going to do is we want to set a defined amount of time where if we don't hear a response from the system, we're going to give up. We're going to give up on this ask and we'll start a brand new ask. This has to do with if you ever have a lag or a hang up or something in the system, we'll be good to go. So from here, we want to go into our setup section, which is where we put our code for initializing actually running this setup. So we're going to do serial begin, because we're going to want to use our serial 1 system to get some feedback from our ESP32. We are going to say, just to be a little bit fancy, we're going to say serial.println, and we'll say something like ESP32 lin master, and we're going to say TX plus RX, and, sort of leave it at that. Then what we want to do is, remember I told you we're using RX2 and TX2, or RX2 and TX2 on the ESP32, which means we're going to be using serial 2 to do our communication. So lin mod, comma, serial 8 and 1. Now, if you're having trouble at this point while I'm typing this, it could be that you don't have the ESP32 that has RX and TX pins, which means your ESP32 may be stuck with, utilizing only serial 1, which means you're not going to be able to listen as well as put information on the screen. Guys, it's going to make it really, really hard for you to debug. So I'm going to put a link in the description. Just use the one that I'm recommending, or use one that has its own separately defined RX and TX pins. All right, so now our setup is good. So now we want to talk about, what do we do? How do we actually wake this thing up? Now, I want to set this up. I don't like putting everything in one function or within the loop, so I'm going to set up a separate function called sendHeader. Okay, this is what's going to be our function that is going to wake the system up. Okay, so, but sendHeader doesn't exist. That's a function we're going to need to create. And whenever you create functions, you need the function to be listed above wherever you call it. So I'm going to go directly above setup, and I'm going to say void sendHeader uint 8 underscore t ID, and I am going to open this up. So now I'm going to create this function so that when I do this, we execute the code up here. What am I going to do? Well, as part of learning about the LIN bus system, it uses things called headers, breaks, protected IDs. And so when we create this header, when we send this header, we need to send a protected ID in addition to our actual signal. So we're going to need to calculate the protected ID. All right, and when we set this code up, we're going to create this. So we're saying we're going to create the protected ID variable, and we're going to say create that by calling this function. Well, in order to call that function, we have to come up here and we have to create another function that executes that particular one. So int t calc PID. Why am I doing this? It's because it's not actual. Why do I put this instead of void, right? uint 8 instead of void, because this is actually going to return information back here, not just execute a script. Okay? Think of it, the difference, I mean, I'm probably putting this very basic, but think of it as, Joe, I want you to go down to the ShopRite and I want you to touch the wall and come back. Okay, Joe will go down, he'll touch the wall, he'll come back, but he doesn't bring anything back with him. That's the difference than I say, Joe, go down to ShopRite, pick up a carton of eggs and bring the eggs back. Okay, so in the case of sendHeader, we're saying go touch the wall and come back. In the case of this one, we're saying go touch the wall and get the eggs and bring them back. PID, underscore T, ID. Now, I'm not going to explain what each and every one of these things means because, we'd kind of be here all day as I try to go through explaining it to you guys. How programming works, and I'm just not in the business of explaining how programming works, but this one is a little bit complicated. It has to do with how the ID or the protected ID is created. There are 2 bits that need to be calculated, which are called parity bits, and then the rest of the bit is just this simple functional ID. So I'm gonna go ahead and type it in here. I've got this written down elsewhere. Actually, you know what? What I'll do is I'll just copy and paste this so you guys don't have to sit here and watch me do it. But long story short, what this is going to do is it's going to take your ID you sent over. It's going to calculate your parity bit number 1. It's going to calculate your parity bit 0, parity bit 1. And then it's going to merge the ID, parity bit 0, and parity bit 1 all into one final result and pass it back here as the parity ID. Okay, so just trust me on it as I'm typing. Learn the code, write it down, memorize it if you want. I haven't, but it'll be good for you guys to know. The next is, as part of this header, we need to take a little breather, right? Once we actually send the information. So we need to send a break, okay? So once again, in order to send a break though, it's got to be above this function. So I'm just going to come up here to the top and I'm going to say void send break. We don't send anything as part of the break. We're just going to execute the break. So what do? We're going to turn the serial. We're going to turn serial to off. We're going to take the LIN TX pin. We don't want to leave it to be controlled by the UART anymore. We want to take control of it. Okay, so we're going to take control of the TX pin away from the UART. We're going to say digital write, and we are going to write that LIN TX pin low. This is going to force the pin low and keep it low for a predefined amount of time. How long? Well, you're about to find out. Why 1300 microseconds? Because 13 bits, which is your signal, takes about 96 microseconds each, which is about 1250 picoseconds? No, 96 microseconds times 13 bits, 1250 microseconds, okay? Then what we want to do is we want to turn our TX pin back on, saying, okay, system, you can reassume control of it, and then we're going to say delay one more time, just to give it a chance to shout into the sky. And then finally, we're going to turn our LIN bus system back over to the system to execute. Okay, so that allows the system to actually take a break. Now, what are the final things we want to do? All right, we want to take all of this information and we want to send our initial LIN bus signal. So now that we've sort of woken it up, we want to say, hey, stay up for a few seconds, which, if my memory serves me, 0x55 is what we always send on LIN bus systems. Then we're going to send our parity or protected ID. Then we're going to flush out the serial. Okay? So now at this point, all of this should compile correctly. And if we plug it in, we should see our steering wheel lights, right? Our first indicator that we're getting, that we're turning on the Melexis chip and it's staying on, is that the lights should stay on. So what we'll do is we'll click this button to upload. Now, again, my ESP32 is plugged in. I will try to switch us over to our kind of dual screen, our split here. Okay, so I'll actually put it like this because it will be easier to see our steering wheel. We see our system compiling over here. I'll stretch this out. once we start to see it go blah, 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 you'll know that it's actually uploading, which is what you see here. Okay, it just said hard resetting via RTS pin. And then down here, I got a notification that said done uploading. So now, what does this mean? Well, let's find out. So right now I have my ground unplugged. I'm going to plug this in. We should see the lights turn on, and we should see them stay on. So let's watch right here. Oh, they're on. Remember, they turned off after about 5 seconds last time? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Guys, look at this. Our lights are staying on. That means we have successfully used programming to turn on the Melexis chip. We're talking to it right now. We're just not listening to it. But the good thing is it's listening to us and it's staying on. Okay, so this is our first big milestone in actually getting the Melexis chip to listen, and it means we're speaking the same language. So I think I'm going to end here for today, guys. I'm really excited. I hope you stayed around. And, you know, once again, I'll say this. I've seen a huge outpouring from you guys. You know, as of yesterday, I was at about 70 subscribers. Now, I think last time I checked, I was over 400, 450, something like that. Guys, it's been huge. I didn't really think that it was going to blow up this big. It feels big to me. So thank you. Thank you for sticking around. I try to keep this as real as I can, you know, as we stumble through things. And, you know, you may see some breaks here. My doorbell rang a few times. I did have to get up. But you guys are seeing it as I type it, and I hope you can follow along. So I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.